Hello, I love Super Nintendo. I eat, sleep and live everything SNES. I love Super Nintendo. Right, now, after the slight miscalculation last time, we are having no mistakes in this video. We are going wild, we are going hardcore, we are going rock and roll racing on the Super Nintendo. R&R Racing is an adrenaline fest. This game is a battle racing game, requiring you to race your way to victory on each track to progress to the next one. Along the way, you can use your earnings to buy upgrades for your vehicle, as well as weapons. These weapons can then be used during the race to briefly incapacitate your opponents. Now, obviously, we could quite easily compare Rock and Roll Racing to another Super Nintendo classic, Super Mario Kart. Both involve racing, both involve winning championships to progress further through the game, and both involve using projectile weapons to incapacitate your enemy for a short amount of time. However, saying that R&R Racing is a cheap knockoff of Super Mario Kart is like saying that Friday the 13th is a cheap knockoff of Halloween. Halloween, the series, did not invent slasher films, and equally, Super Mario Kart did not invent battle racing games. Battle racing games were appearing since at least the 1970s. So what we're going to do is treat these games completely different, because let's be honest, that's what they are. Rather than being fixated on reality, as so many racing games are, R&R Racing takes place on a number of different fictional planets, and the backgrounds and opponents are specified around this idea. Human characters race against lizards, cats and other strange-looking creatures, and homeworlds include Purple Planet and Orange Planet. As with many racing games, a variety of music accompanies around each track, but many of the tunes will be recognisable to players as they are in fact instrumental versions of songs by famous rock bands such as Black Sabbath, Deep Purple and Steppenwolf. Now, I find this idea particularly cool. Imagine if everywhere you went, some kind of rock and roll soundtrack followed you, like some kind of your own theme music. That'd be amazing. Hit it!
He's got high hopes. He's got high hopes. He's got high apple pie in the sky.
Wrong side. That's it. Turn it over. Rock and Roll Racing may not have been the first game of this genre, but what it did that many of the previous battle racing games had not done was that R&R Racing gave you the option to upgrade your vehicles by spending your winnings in a store. The usual upgrades that you would expect, such as a more powerful engine and better brakes, are all here, alongside purchasing weapons such as missiles and slip saws. What is particularly nice is that each upgrade makes a noticeable difference to the performance of your car, and by the later levels, which upgrades you choose can seriously affect your driving experience. This game was originally supposed to be a sequel to the SNES game RPM Racing, but the name was changed to Rock and Roll Racing when the rights to a number of music tracks were secured for the soundtrack. The soundtrack is pretty cool. Even those players who aren't music fans should at least recognise Steppenwolf's Born to be Wild, and the music fits in perfectly with the style of game. A vital part of driving games is that they lead you into the difficulty gradually. Whereas most other genres can afford to be difficult from the offset, driving games are so individual in the gaming technique that they need to be kind to a new player starting out. And R&R Racing does this well. You will glide through the first few levels with little concern, but by about the third planet you will definitely have needed to master the game, at every turn or hill in the track can be the difference between first and even fourth place. Finally, R&R Racing is fun. The characters are zany, the colours are bold, and it's a good, fun package. In all honesty, you could definitely do worse than Rock and Roll Racing. Generally, this game is fun. There is very little that really lets it down. However, one of the real letdowns of R&R Racing is the commentary. It just sucks. Generally, commentary in games does suck, but in R&R Racing it feels like a bit of a letdown because it could have been so much more. The game is obviously supposed to be a bit of a laugh, and in comparison the commentary just feels a bit stale. The same 3 or 4 comments is made throughout each race again and again.
Viper fade to the left!
The background graphics. Now the races are supposed to take place on different planets, and generally this works. However, the main problem is that there are often 8 or 10 races on the same planet. Now, the background just gets so boring. By the time you're on your 8th race, you're just wishing to see a different colour rather than everything purple or everything green. Even when you change to a different planet, it kind of feels that all that's been done is that the background colour has just been changed from purple to orange. So in fact, the race tracks still feel like exactly the same tracks. Now I don't know about you, but I can think of more fun things to do than just race the same track 50 or 60 times. This leads on to really the only serious problem I have with this game. It can get repetitive after a time. Having to race 8 or 10 times on the same planet is just far too many. By the end, you have seen too much of the same landscape, which is a shame, because as a one-off, the planets look okay. But after having to see each one so many times, I'm just bored. Maybe 3 or 4 races on each planet would have been ample. R&R Racing is one of those games that is good, simple fun. The graphics are pretty good, the sound is epic, and the gameplay is great for a laugh, especially if you have a few mates around. Now, if you play it by yourself, as I did, then it can get repetitive after a while, after you've played the same tracks, or what feels like the same tracks, again and again and again. However, in the game's defence, there is a password system, and it's probably better to play the game in stages and use the passwords than to try and bash out the whole thing in one sitting. Maybe the levels would feel less repetitive if they were strung out over a longer period of time.
Pie, apple pie, enough sky hope. So anytime you're getting low, instead of
Just stop, okay? Stop trying. 82% for Rock and Roll Racing on the Super Nintendo. Well, the end of October is almost on us, and to celebrate Halloween, we will be having an extra special Super Nintendo review with a Halloween theme. So, grab your broomsticks, bring your cauldrons to the boil, and get ready for some spooktacular Super Nintendo fun. See you in a couple of weeks.
Just what makes that little old ant think he'll move that rubber tree plant? Anyone knows an ant can't move a rubber tree plant, but he's got high hopes. He's got high hopes. He's got high apple pie.